what happens when I find is my ultimate meaning in life bumps up and conflicts with what someone else finds to be their ultimate meaning in life. Hi, welcome to Elysian Ends. I remember years ago when my wife said to me the words, "Congratulations, honey, you did it. All these years of hard work and you finally made it." Now, these words came to me. I knew that I should be happy. It was truly a pinnacle in my career that I had reached. And I knew that I should be happy, but there was something that was wrong. The moment that I was experienced, it had looked different in my mind during all of the years when I was striving towards the goal. Wasn't this what I'd always wanted? As I reflected, wasn't a true blessing for me and my family? So what was wrong? What was it that had happened to where something I had worked for my entire life, I had achieved it, and yet it wasn't what I thought? Idols sometimes are good things that become bad things when they are placed before the greatest thing. Let me say that again. Idols are sometimes good things that become bad things when we place them before the greatest thing. Now, after my wife said these words and we had this conversation, a few weeks later, she also said these words to me. She said, "I don't know what it is that you're obsessing over, but you need to hand it over to God." And I told her that, responded back almost sharply and out of frustration. I said, "I've given it to God 5 times since breakfast. I'm not doing it right. I'm doing something wrong." Now, at this point in time, it had been 2 years since I had lost my aunt and my dad, one to cancer, the other to a heart attack. And we had just recently come out of a season where, after Amy, my wife, and her brain surgery that she underwent in 2014, we came out of this period of getting her pain stabilized and manageable. She had been able to start living a normal life again. She could sleep laying down, and she wouldn't have these sudden rushes off to the emergency room because she had stabbing pain throughout her head. And so, with things kind of stabilizing, my focus was back onto my career. It was focused back onto what I was working on in life. And I had reached the pinnacle of my career that I'd been striving for a little over 20 years. I was a senior executive account manager for the very company that I'd always wanted to work for. And that moment in July of that year, I had closed or had just closed the largest deal of my career. I'd come just shy of hitting my annual quota, just barely 6 months in to the fiscal year. For everything that mattered, for everything that I had chased after, for everything that was ultimately meaningful to me, I should have been walking on air at that moment. We were financially comfortable. We had a nice home that we had just moved into. The kids were doing great. We were healthy. And even something that was really important to me, my wife was proud of me. I was, quote unquote, living the dream. But for me, as I reflected on it, and I looked at where I was at on this mountaintop, I began to have like this sense of vertigo. It was this anxiety that just wouldn't leave me alone, and I couldn't find peace from it. And I knew that nothing was possible without God, and thus I was thankful for this blessing of comfort and the prosperity that we had, the success that I had had throughout my career, the healing that He had given for my wife, much of the emotional healing that He'd given to me and my family as we'd walked through the loss of my dad and my aunt. But something was wrong. It was deeply wrong, and I couldn't find something to fill that gap that was in me as I'd crested over that mountain. of achievement. The aim of my life was off. My worldview lacked an answer to ultimate purpose, meaning, and value. And I didn't have an answer for that. The answered properly. I was living my life to where I was prone to chase after whatever the culture told me was where I would find that ultimate meaning and happiness. And so as I came over the top of one mountain with some grand achievement, I would have this sense of vertigo once again in my life, looking for that next thing that I needed to achieve. My worth was tied up not intrinsically as to who I am and what I am, but my worth as a human being was tied up extrinsically. It was outside of me. It was how I performed, how I produced, what I achieved. Now, on the outside, to many, that kind of life looks like the good life. It looks like the success life. It looks like the life that many of us here in America are chasing after. But on the inside, it is a life of absolute turmoil. When there is a goal to chase after, we have that salve to rub over that void in our life because we're focused on that. And we know that once we hit that mountaintop, we're going to get that next fix. It's like a drug, that achievement, that next fix of achieving something. But on the inside, it starts to wear down because we get tired. You begin to not have the same high as you reach the next mountaintop and hit the next achievement point. It doesn't give you that fixation that you're seeking. And so when the worldview is lacking, when a worldview is not there to support and align with reality, many times when we get what we desire most, we find that what we desired most isn't the most fulfilling. And so at that moment, when my wife told me, whatever it is you're obsessing over, you need to give it over to God, I hit my knees. And I asked for the first time in complete surrender, Lord, what is it that you would have me do? And that prayer has not left my lips for the past 6 years, as I seek and ask God to guide me as to what it is that he would have me do. And through the pain, defeats, and heartaches, I've learned that a life lived in pursuit of Christ is the only life that will be an ultimately meaningful life. Now, that contrasts deeply with the world and the culture that we find ourselves in. For the world and the culture, a world that rejects God, the question of whether life has meaning results in a couple of different answers. And both of those answers lead to dead ends. One response is that life has meaningless, or life is meaningless. That question has no meaning. Now, this is what's called nihilism. This is a form of there is no ultimate meaning or value or purpose to life. But any worldview or anything that claims to have this view of the world should be tested in whether or not we can live it out. And what is very interesting is that those who claim that life has no ultimate meaning or life has no meaning don't actually live their life or view the lives of those around them as if their lives have no meaning. They do things that they believe ultimately has meaning. And we see this from people who deny God but want to leave that legacy. They want to leave that mark on the world that gave their life a transcendent or ultimate meaning, a meaning that will go beyond just their life here. Now, that's not to say that that's wrong. It's just to say that there's no ground for it. It doesn't make sense to say that life has no meaning or life is meaningless, yet to live a life as if it has meaning, well, there's a conflict there. It conflicts with how one is living out their life. Now, the other answer, and this is a more common answer and one that we find more in our society today, is that life has only the meaning in which you give it. In other words, life doesn't have ultimate meaning, but it has meaning based on what I ascribe to it. So I determine what gives my life meaning, or I find meaning in my life. Now, but there's a challenge with this, right? There's a challenge with this. What happens when I find as my ultimate meaning in life bumps up and conflicts with what someone else finds to be their ultimate meaning in life, right? I mean, what if I decided that I determined that ultimate meaning for me in life is torturing babies for my pleasure? And you might hear that and be like, wow, that's really extreme. That's, you really went to the extreme on that one, but did I? Is it all that extreme? Is that something that we wouldn't find in our current cultural context? Is me ascribing meaning in my life and deciding that torturing babies for fun or for my pleasure is something that is so out there? I mean, after all, let's take this for a test drive. In our culture today, we have a certain view about sex. With whomever you want, whenever you want, however you want. That is your choice. You can live in that way. And sex is fun, right? Sex is fun. But here's that challenge. Sex produces babies. And if babies are to get in the way of my fun, well, we have a process for eliminating that problem, right? We have a process through a torturous means called abortion. And because I can take care of that problem, I can go back to my pleasure. So if I am able to determine what has ultimate meaning in life, then ultimately, who are you to come and tell me when what I determine is ultimate meaning in my life, who are you to come and tell me that it's wrong? Who are you to come and tell me that it's immoral? Who are you to come and tell me that I should not ascribe that ultimate meaning? After all, it's just merely your opinion. And what we'll end up having in society is we're going to have this conflict of where might makes right. The one who is the most powerful is the one who gets to express what ultimate meaning is. But that ultimate meaning still only resides in the opinions of that collected group of people. So, in the end, a world that rejects God is going to arrive at two different conclusions about ultimate meaning. Either life is meaningless, however, we don't live our lives that way. And two, life only has the meaning in which we ascribe to it, the meaning that we put into it. However, that leads to other problems as well that ultimately lead to conflict, which we see in our culture and society today. However, while those do not align with reality, those do not correspond to the way life really is, Christianity, because Christianity is true, Christianity points to the type of creatures that we are. It points to the type of creatures we are. It points to the design or purpose that was placed within us. And ultimately, it points to how that purpose is to know God. That purpose is to pursue God in love with all that we have because of all that He is. And from that overflow in that relationship with God, we are then to love others, seeking what's best for them, even above our own interests. Now, we've got different stories of reality here. We have a story of reality that rejects God, which we find in our current culture, which results in all kinds of problems around ascribing meaning to life and how to live a meaningful life and understanding our purpose. And we can follow those, but we'll follow those to our own detriment and our own destruction. Or we can examine our beliefs, recognize what is true, what is the true story about the world, and fulfill our ultimate purpose, our ultimate meaning in life in that pursuit and relationship of God and loving others.